will land here.
Yes.
I used to do the same thing.
Yeah.
I think sometimes they get stuck on like.
Projector.
Business.
Mhm.
And it's a
personal kind of with that, let's say SSF, that's have live streaming. That's fine. I will land here. Yeah.
But if not. Okay. Thanks, Hank. Yeah, 45 minutes back.
All right, I think we got it this time, guys, thank you. We're on the way out. Yes, please, and thank you, and Cheryl, these are straight in front of you on an action. Oh, perfect, thank you. Okay, and I'm gonna get. Yes, please, and I will get Craig a coffee and then we can get started. And get this, yeah. Yeah.
Sudbury really got nailed to the snow.
Oh, did they?
I think they claim they have more than us.
No.
I saw the pictures from Sudbury, yeah, I don't know about. Yep, welcome everybody. We'd like to start the meeting with a land acknowledgement. I acknowledge with respect that we are in the Robinson Huron Treaty Territory, that the land on which we are gathered is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and known as the Powhatan. Powhatan is the home of Garden River First Nation, Batchewana First Nation, and the historic Sault Ste. Marie Métis Council. And in recognition of that. I forgot what I was going to say, but that's okay, we'll move right along here. Let's do, because I was thinking we should do member introductions here. Given that we are live on YouTube and we have Carrie joining us online. Leslie, thank you very much for doing our sign language interpretation for us. And let's just go around the table. Sandra, did you want to start?
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Councillor Sandra Hollingsworth. And always a joy to be here.
Thanks. Diane Morale, Accessibility Coordinator for the city.
Don McConnell, I'm the accessibility chair.
Carol Magnan, committee member.
Right, Kohler, committee member.
Somebody Papa, city planning.
And Carrie, did you want to go live?
Carrie Tuckett, deafblind intervener on the call.
Thank you. We are expecting Lisa Bezo Allen shortly as well. And welcome to the Northern Community Center. This is our second attempt to move to this particular room. My understanding is, Diane, we're going to be here permanently from here on in, but we do have the ability to upgrade and change our audio video systems. So it's a bit of an experiment today. We'll see how this goes. We also have the next item on our agenda is the minutes from our last meeting on February 11th. Are there any comments, questions, errors, omissions, things people would like to add? Seeing none, can we have a mover and a seconder? Craig, moved by Craig, seconded by Carol, that the minutes of our February 11th meeting be approved. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, and that is carried. Oh, and we have Dan Curry has now joined us on video. Hi, Dan, welcome.
I don't think.
Are there any declarations of conflict of interest that anyone may have with any item that's on the agenda? Again, declaration of conflict of interest if you or an immediate family member or financial interest. And to quote the former city solicitor Lori Bottas, if you think you might have a conflict of interest, you do. Seeing none, moving right along. Diane has attached 2 letters of support, one for the Rick Hansen Barrier Buster grant, which Lisa is involved with, and one for the Enabling Accessibility Workplace grant, which has the potential to be a very large grant. Diane, did you want to just run through that for the members of it?
I sure will. The package that I sent out to the committee had 2 letters of support. But I did send out another letter of support for requests that we received. So first of all, the Rick Hansen Barrier Buster grants was for the Mantle Park Pool. The grant is $40,000 to bring in some accessibility updates to this facility, which is being very well used, but is an older facility and really could use a little bit of accessibility updates. So they're nothing major, but every bit helps to increase the accessibility. The second one is a rather large grant. So it's the Enabling Accessibility Fund for Workplace Accessibility. And it took us a little while to figure out if we fit into the criteria for this grant. And it's all about workplace accessibility. So intended to improve the workplace for existing employees and increase the potential for future employees with disabilities as well. It took us a little while to figure out that it is multi-site. It is not one building. It is multi-site. So we were able to meet the criteria with a minimum request for $500,000 up to $1 million. It took quite a bit of organizing, shall I say, trying to figure out what fits into it, what's doable, what are projects that are ready to go that we can get a reasonable quote for. So there were several projects included in there for, I think there was 6 different sites. So there was City Hall, there was the NCC, there's the Bay Street Active Living Center, there's the John Rhodes Community Center. There was a small one for Public Works as well. That building needs far more than this $1 million probably would have taken us, but we'll do what we can where we can. And I forget what this, and Ermitinger-Clergue National Historic Site was number 6. So there's some improvements for all of those areas, depending upon how ready some of these projects could be put together. If the grant is successful, either way, we'll find out at some point this summer, and it's a 2-year grant. And I think the final submission was for $588,000 worth of projects. So having to do with workplace accessibility, it's quite significant. I don't know when this committee would have over $500,000 specifically for accessibility.
Thanks, Diane. Just on that, is the 588 being provided under the accessibility grant, 588,000, or does the city have a contribution there as well?
Excellent question. The city does, there is no kind of matching funds at 25% to 10%. But they did strongly suggest that we have a 20% contingency on all projects. Now, the chances of every single project coming above budget are probably rare because these are new quotes. So departments have committed from their operational budgets that 20% because it will improve facilities as well. So it's an incredible opportunity.
That's amazing, that's some really, really good news, I certainly hope that we get it. Are there any questions of Diane on that? There is another grant too coming up here,
Yes.
but it's just that's as Diane said, I don't do,
That's a major change, Chair.
I don't ever recall that kind of money.
Not in my time. no.
Not to go back and fix things.
Sometimes for new projects,
Yeah.
but not, as you say, not to. Not to correct or enhance, and enhance is a better word, because when those buildings were designed. Accessibility would not have been required, I'm thinking of the PWT location, would not have been considered a requirement. Would not even been, I doubt it would have even been considered.
Yes, and there was limited availability for us to include much in the public works because it's an old building. You know, really, building needs an elevator, which in a short period of time, there was no way that we could pull together,
No,
you know, structural
those are,
projects, so it wasn't a reality. However, that being said, that's the value in us having projects identified
Yep.
and approximate costs for this moving forward. The last grant was another Rick Hansen RBC Barrier Buster grant program, and this request came to us through Lisa Bezo Allen, who is supporting an application for the YMCA. And it includes various different accessibility things, including an evac chair, non-slip pool flooring and matting. And that's about it. So again, that was a $40,000 grant. So Dawn graciously provided a letter of support for that. So that's our 3 letters.
Okay, very good.
All very positive, yes. And Greg, go ahead.
one further question to Chair through you, Diane, any idea when we will hear about these, you said sometime over the summer?
For the enabling accessibility grant, they say summer of 2026. With projects must be started not later than December of 2026.
Right, that's the requirement,
Yes, now it being such a large grant of its kind. I don't know how they're gonna sort through all the grant applications for so many projects by summer. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's closer to fall by the time we hear.
and summer will be spent sorting through them.
I would think so.
I don't know how many people are in that office, but I suspect that we usually we could reveal one-arm paper hand.
I would think so.
Because I presume every municipality in the province probably has a list, not dissimilar to the one we submitted. It would shock me if they didn't,
I think you're right.
especially every community with a community such as ours and going. Yeah, I think you've been privy to that conversation more than 50, and it sounds like a large pool of funds. Some years. Awesome.
Diane, I'm gonna give you a choice here for what's next on the agenda. Did you wanna go to the multi-year accessibility plan approval, or did you wanna talk about the accessible training?
Actually, let's go to the accessible document training, because that is. It's sort of new, but not entirely new to the committee. So under new business, that's why it's there under new business. So there is a council report going to council for March 23rd meeting. I provided the committee the report, but it has not been included in the public materials yet because it is not appropriate for it to be public before it goes to council. Just so you know what is in the report. And basically it is about training all staff that create public facing documents to be able to create accessible documents. And what that means, it's going to have to be a multi-pronged approach to training, starting with the very basics of document structure. So use of headings and use of styles and appropriate use of all of those things that we find in our in our styles that make our fonts look a different way, but they actually have some structure built into the back of it. So that people that use screen readers can understand when they've entered into a new topic. So it's very, very important. So that's the very first step, is making sure that everybody has a basic understanding of that. And then on to that, there is creating accessible PDFs. PDFs are part of our world. And sometimes we receive documents that are in PDF, they can still be remediated or changed to become accessible, but you need software, you need training. So how do we do that? And then on to much more complex documents, such as tables or Excel sheets. So how do we make all of these complex documents more accessible? It will include things like, the document structure, color contrast, using alternative text, using plain language. We need to use plain language to speak to our community. It's very important, because if the language that we use is a high level language, people still don't know what we're talking about. So that's very important as well. So it will be a multi-pronged approach. The request is for using the entire barrier removal reserves, which sits currently at $85,000. I'm hoping it doesn't take the whole $85,000, but when you think about every employee that creates documents, that's a lot of people. And then there's a lot of layers to it. So that's why I've requested the entire $85,000.
Can you define staff, like, are we also looking at summer students? Because I know summer students help Virginia McCall a lot. So this is an excellent training program. But we have a summer student, how can we give them some type of training and yet be able to help Virginia with documents?
Right, and you're right, someone like Virginia is so busy and she has so many summer students under her. I'm not sure if it will be practical to provide training with the students, but another component of the training will include resource materials, and with a little bit of luck, I'm crossing my fingers, will also include some tutorial videos on how do we do this, how do we check color contrast, what is that, I forget the name of the program. So we'll have to have some resources to go back to, because there are some things that people do all the time and some things that people do maybe once a year. So I'm hoping that those resources will provide that value.
Another question, with AI, as we all know, AI is part of our life now. Do you know if there's going to be an AI component to this training, that person can use AI that have been tested to help with document structure, document content, document structure, so forth?
I don't know for sure. I suspect that is probably the first stage in a lot of document remediation companies. When you send something out to be remediated, I suspect that's the first stage, and then it takes the human eye to do the fine tuning look.
Okay.
My experience in using AI, I've asked it to create some accessible documents, and what it gives me back is anything but accessible. But I'm not using the proper program for this, right? I'm sure there is appropriate software. I have no idea what it is, though.
Gotta be careful with AI, because it'll change the words to make the whole meaning of everything.
Yeah.
Yes,
So there'll be somebody to review it. It's published or anything, and
that is the fun step, is the human eye, because there are some very subtle things like that. That only the human eye will pick up on. You know, something might technically meet, say, a color contrast guideline, but you look at it and it's like, it's just not quite right.
And
So-
I've also had AI switch paragraphs on me. Take my top paragraph, put it at the bottom, and bottom and put it at the top, it changes the order. But it's saying what I wanted to say, but it switches it.
So the human eye is always going to be the final check.
Diana, I take it that this is gonna be a phased approach, like we can't train 100 people all at once on this. Like,
No, and we started on the RFP, but the first step is going to council to request the use of the funds and to also enter into the procurement process with the procurement folks. And one of the steps that we've included in there is that they help us to analyze who fits into which category, who needs some very basic Word document instead of pressing enter to get spaces. You know, that you do that in a different way, right? So that's someone who really doesn't have much, if any, knowledge about document structure. So we need their expertise to sort people into their starting level. And that's been built into our RFP. And it could be a year, it could be longer than a year for us to get there. I think it will be a 2-year process. Because we need people to get some basic training, then they have to use it.
I know when you get into maps and stuff, it's really difficult, that's a.
Yes, and that's
Big
another,
advanced program, I guess.
it absolutely is, so we can make complex documents like maps accessible. And how do we do that? How do we describe this for people? We need to get their feedback about what is the important information that you need off of this map. It's a transit route. Do we need to describe the whole city schedule, or do you need to know how to get from your house to the grocery store and to maybe the library and your commonly used places? Right, so it'll be teaching us how do we change those non-friendly formats into some kind of information that's useful.
I know this has been an issue with the city and the accessibility advisory committee for a number of years now. So this is really great that we got some money hopefully and moving forward. I see you do a post resolution as well. I think it's important to remind everybody that this is a legal requirement. And I think it's important to remind the committee that even though we may be spending $85,000, we still have other funding available to us, specific projects that may come up. Are there any other questions on this?
It's well worth it.
Rick, go ahead.
Just one thought. Yeah, we have previously spoken, and they will support the idea. Just a question, will we have an opportunity to review programming once established so we can bring some learned experience? I'm sitting here looking at Carol knowing she knows more about document preparation than I will ever need to know, thank the Lord. But there, and again, plain language is also another question because of learning disabilities and other agencies may have an opinion. The Alzheimer's Society may have some suggestions. As citizens, we are an older demographic does skew a little older, Mr. Chair, in the community. So it's probably a group we should reach out to perhaps to get some more learned. Not that I don't think we're gonna need professional help, but let's have some learned experience so we don't get it.
The only problem is with the RFP process, that is a process that happens with staff only. The
Right.
public are not part of that
Understood,
whole review once the bids come in.
gotcha.
But it's up to us to create the criteria that casts as broad a net as possible so that we catch it all. And if we've missed something, we can go back and look at it
No, it's just that
more.
I understand what they're closed, it's a question making sure that we have. When we have the product come to us, when we put people through the training, let's see, can have some, learning experience, take a look at. How are we progressing, we're doing No, what would you, here's what we started with, what would we add, or what have we missed something? That was my concern with checking the outside source.
Yes, and absolutely, we will tap into our resources such as Carol and other community resources that rely on accessible documents to say, how are we doing? How does this look? Does it work?
Are we moving in the right direction? I don't,
Yes.
Rome, old expression, Rome was not built in a day, correct, the city's documents, this, as Don pointed out, this has been on the list of things we need to do for a long time.
Yes, and it's important to know that we've always had the upon request, and this is air quotes, upon request, accessible documents upon request. However, is that really good enough? I think we can be proactive.
Well, some citizens were not afraid to ask, but there are lots of citizens who might be concerned about, wouldn't even necessarily know how to approach it.
Yeah.
People in this room probably have done it, so. We bring more experience than most, I would imagine, I've made requests of this municipality, I've made requests of the federal government on certain things, for. I've seen other people do alternate formats, it's not unknown, but not universally used. That's the downside of the upon request. Although
Agreed.
there's a, so it's a cost reason to do that, so we don't. We had to go back into the archives, the 85,000 wouldn't cover the coffee bill.
Yes, and that's the other thing is that we're gonna be moving forward with this. We're not going to be moving backwards. The moving backwards on existing documents, we will rely on the upon request. Because it's just not good use of our resources to go backwards. We need to go forward. But anyone requesting anything from archives or from something from this committee
Yeah, we have
last year,
We have to set a start date. With new models.
yes.
Part of the project.
Greg, I think that's a really good point, maybe two things that. Will help us feel better about our involvement or lack of involvement moving forward. Dan, I take it that you're part of the group that's doing the RFP and making a decision recommendation.
Yeah.
That's strong, and you have the ability to go chat with anybody that you like, if you feel that would be helpful. The other thing is, I trust that like when we're hiring a firm. We're hiring a firm that has done this lots of times before, and that you know. They may not get as much benefit from our experience early on, but on the other hand, we're getting the benefit of their experience. And if we can establish a good working relationship moving forward, everything should. And should, air quotes, I know we like air quotes, should go well, right? But I gotta tell you, I'm really pumped about this, because this has been a problem for city and for staff for a number of years, even like with regards to the official plan on that. And we were putting documents up and people were saying, you know, it doesn't comply. Okay, what do we do about that? And we didn't have a good answer. That's something. Any other comments, questions?
I'm just very similar to your strain, Dawn, was just looking at advice from other municipalities with other organizations or consultants they may have used. Would definitely be a benefit and just ensuring as well, I know there's been some of that is that we keep with gender neutrality with language, so that's the other thing that's very important in terms of accessibility is that we don't have the he she in documents, and that should be not used at all.
Okay, thank you. Lisa.
Yeah, that's a big thing
very
that's come out
important.
of a lot of. Cause I had to change all of our bylaws.
Other comments, thoughts, questions?
It's a quick update on one. What's it? Allows question of. And do you still talk with the other accessibility coordinator?
Absolutely. And I've already asked
Okay, so
some of those questions and I've saved their responses.
got you.
And accessible documents is a frequent conversation
I
that
can imagine.
happens.
Oh, it's the benefit of table. When we were in Diane's role years ago, those officers, all municipalities, we would get together, it was almost a weekly meet. It was a weekly decompression session. where we found the London fads, for example, the facility standards that the city still use, we literally lifted it, added the snow removal, and that's how we ended up with what we. Folks in London have a different snow removal policy, just
You don't.
close the city down and leave it down. Literally, that was not written in their policy, but that was their operational policy. Which worked, it worked in London, but would not work here. But thank you to that guy, and I know that that resource saved saved an awful lot of stress, so we, if someone else has done it. Sometimes even things that don't go well can be just these little lessons of don't do this, or there were cautionary tales shared, sometimes over. Those discussions can get a little bit. They were very useful, but sometimes frightening.
Yes.
Dan, you do have a resolution proposed for this.
To it.
Actually, that was already done by email. I recopied it here for everybody's reference, so I could certainly read that out. So that did come from the committee and it got unanimous support from the entire committee on this. So resolution in support of the Accessibility Advisory Committee. Whereas the provision of accessible documents is required by the Integrated Accessibility Standards Regulation. Therefore, be it resolved that the Accessibility Advisory Committee supports the use of barrier removal reserves to the maximum amount of $85,000 for accessible document training and software purchase for city staff, and recommend that City Council approve this request. So it is important to know that I'm fairly certain that there will be software purchases required to go along with the document
Undoubtedly.
accessibility. Yes. And so the mover was Carol and the seconder was Diana.
Gina? Any other comments or questions on this? Then let's just move right along. The next item on our agenda is that at the last council meeting, our multi-year accessibility plan was approved. And you'll notice on the agenda, Diane put this down as one line. Oh yes, we got the super. I would just like to talk about this for one little day here. Because like this is a really big deal, guys. We have a lot of big deal stuff here and for those of you who've been around, for a couple of years. Will remember that our multi-year accessibility plan was basically a budget document. And we moved beyond that to have a real plan to transform the basis for specific policies moving forward. Let's just look at what's in there, because and I'm not gonna take a lot of the committee's time on this, but just a minute or two. There's a section on training, how important that is and how we're going to do that with our staff, and we have on our agenda today for this. Information, we have sections on policies on information on communications, how do we provide information with people? How do we allow them to come back to us? Dealing with our website, employment standards. What is the city going to do to encourage people with disabilities to work at the city? How are we going to accommodate this? Transportation services. We have a site plan committee that's really involved with all of our public spaces and facilities. And I think it's fair to say that, over the last couple of years, we've had great support from the city staff on building accessible playgrounds and moving in that direction. We've also got great support from the Kiwanis, and we're, others, that this is top of mind for a lot of different organizations. We talk about customer service, and the thing that I am most happy about, we have priorities. Because to me, that's it, you need to kind of focus on, you can't do everything at once, and you look at everything that's in here and say, like, it's a 5-year plan for a reason. Nobody should panic, we're not gonna do all of this next month. You knew that, right?
I read that.
Perfect, all right, but let's just look at the priorities that are identified, training.
Yeah.
Yes. Training for city employees, building accessible washrooms, yay. Okay, perfect, we need to put money into this, and we're successful with the grant program that's going in. We will have money to upgrade all of those washrooms. Accessible programming opportunities, this is something that, you know, works through city staff and our design standards. And again, we continue to work on that, can we make them better? So I have to say, the person who is responsible for all of this is sitting right here, it's Diane. I think we should give her a round of applause.
Yes.
But that's great, I just want to appreciate the committee's appreciation for that. And do you have anything you wanted to say?
I think our accessibility plan will bring the accessibility committee to a new level. I think we've got some high level goals, we've got some high level actions. We probably won't accomplish them all in the 5 years.
No.
But when you set your sights high, you reach higher. So it's quite ambitious. Training is the key to everything. I'm very, very big on changing people's attitudes, especially towards people with disabilities, and not seeing people with disabilities, but seeing people with abilities. So that is a huge priority for me in the training. And I've got my fingers in a couple of pies that I hope to be able to share shortly after this RFP comes out, and we know if and how much funds we have left and move on to a next project with some of the barrier removal reserves. So all my time sitting on the committee as a committee member was hugely valuable, and having the various people that are around the table right now, as well as people that have been around the table in the past, we've learned a lot from. So really, this is everybody's plan.
Any other comments, questions? Go ahead, Greg.
Mr. Chairman, through you to Diane. A working with documents. Well, I had a direct hand in some of those early documents, which looked like the Toronto phone book. If anyone's ever seen the hard printed copies of those documents, they were, I'm not joking, they looked like the city council. We tried to cover everything for fear of not having a second crack at the apple. Now that we have a room, now that we are part of the process, that's the part, as we meet every month. I know it's hard to kind of explain to people how that has changed. But being part of the annual normal progress, I see, now it's incremental, this is a wonderful document, because it does set reasonable goals, priorities the chair has identified, and your comment on training is absolutely spot on, my dear. Because with that change, I mean, attitudes are evolving and changing from where we started to where we are now. We've seen progress. This to me is a sign of progress. Hopefully we'll do 5 years. It gives us a structure around which to work. Now granted, a lot of this is funding dependent. We don't know that all the grants come through, we're rolling along, some do, we'll work with what we have. But again, a solid document is actually workable. I don't regret putting those original plans together, but they were too large. In retrospect, we wanted to make sure you didn't miss it. And you've had, as you said, Diane, we're a little smaller group now, but when you had 16 people at the table, everyone had their particular area of expertise or concern. So we tried to accommodate. So that was that. This will actually work. I'm quite sure.
Thank you, Greg.
Thanks, Greg. Any other comments?
I just think it would be really important to do an update. At least annually to council.
Yes, that is a requirement of the
But I just said
legislation.
biannually because. I don't know, like. I think annually it gets a little lost. So I don't know how much, if it would be worth biannually, I don't know, I just.
Is there a particular time of year where council is not overwhelmed, say with budgets or with other very pressing things? If it were once a year, what time of year would be ideal for that?
Spring or fall.
Spring or fall?
I agree, June. I would say like June.
Early fall, like September, like early
Yeah.
fall, like early fall.
Okay,
Yeah.
cause we could definitely.
Yeah.
We could definitely do that, and I was sort of thinking September, cause then you've got the summer to go through some projects. Because I do it at the end of the year, but it doesn't have to be at the end of the year, once a year.
Yeah, I think September would be, I think you might gain better momentum and there might be more attention paid.
Dan, our reports to the accessibility director of Ontario, are they done annually or biannually?
They are biannual. But we have an annual obligation to council
Yeah.
to provide an update on the progress of the plan.
Okay.
We could do it biannually, could do it once a year at another time.
I was just thinking if we kind of roll it all in together. Biannual may work.
It doesn't, because we have an annual obligation under the accessibility act, yeah.
But I think
It is
September would be
annual.
better served for information sharing than other times. Okay.
Go ahead, Council.
Another question, with new council, that will be starting. And with the new council orientation, is there any way that we can leverage off of the orientation? I know that the orientation is mostly to train new council on, you know, how meetings are run and so forth, but this is important. And is it worth having a conversation with the city clerk as we're children?
Yes, I think that is very important. City council, and there was a piece that was missing for a couple of years, and it may have fallen off the map during COVID. I'm not really sure what happened. But having every person makes decisions on behalf of the city, which is city council. As well as third-party contractors who work on behalf of the city must also have the accessibility training. And somehow that piece was lost in the last few years, but it is back.
Yeah,
It will be part of the new council. Those are the canned AODA videos, and it's so easy to tune them out.
they're not great,
They're not great.
they're not.
I have some other thoughts on creating our own videos on accessible customer service.
Yeah.
Accessible, you know, how do you assist passengers with disabilities, say on a bus, so we need, you know, bus driver training specific to people with disabilities, and I would like it to be created here, so that's another project I would love to see. It's gonna take some money, because a videographer is very expensive.
A big one.
A good one is very expensive, but I think we will get probably at least a 10-year lifespan. If we create some videos.
100%.
So I would like to see that, and I would like to see that for our taxi drivers. You know, the ones that are contracted with the city that provide service on behalf of transit. We can offer it to their other taxi drivers as well if they'd like. But any that provide service on behalf of the city, they need the training. So does the transit drivers, customer service staff, you know, what does a customer service staff do when someone comes into the facility and perhaps they have a speech disability and they're very difficult to understand, right? Most people want to be helpful, but how do you help someone when there's a speech disability and if they don't have a support person with them? How do you communicate with that person? So there's a lot things like that.
Yeah, and I
have
think
to
I could
happen.
stem some of that on the Where We Belong video as well.
Yes,
Like kind of make that more of a, rather than a social statement, make it kind of take pieces from that. Cause it's definitely, we definitely have a lot.
Yeah.
I like to think it's great, but
We could use the same person, who does videos for Dan?
I think that's our communications, it's Zoe and Tessa, mostly Zoe that does the videography. And then she does the editing and Dan does the voiceover. I've already talked to our comms and they are, if we remember how many jobs they do, I've already talked to them and they feel they don't have the capacity to create that on our behalf because it's going to be quite labor intensive.
Yeah.
But we've got some funding and if training is a priority for the committee, we can invest some of our funding into that training piece, because I think that will go such a huge way.
Those videos are great.
They are so well
Yeah.
done. Yes, agreed. And the series, I'll share with the committee, offline, like not in the public realm. What I would sort of like to see, and then once you listen to it, you'll be like, that's exactly what we need. So I'll share that as well at some point, yeah.
Other thoughts? Moving along then. I see that Dan is with us today. Dan, hello.
Hi, Dan.
Is there any updates for us or anything we need to know with regards to our APS? Our pedestrian signal system?
So from the last meeting, all the deficiencies that were noted in the fall inspections have been addressed. That's not to say that there's other deficiencies that have come forward this winter, but the typical reporting structure continues. Just reach out to 759-5201 to put in a work order. And we're just hoping for the spring to start doing the spring summertime inspections.
Okay. Any questions of Dan?
No, I think I asked them the questions.
So why don't we have, what is it, 311 or what do they have in the other cities, 311? 211. 211? 211. So people can call in with any issues. And then, I don't know if that goes to the Board of Works in the other cities. If there's accessibility issues, they just dial 211 and then it's fixed.
I think the 211 system, I think it's,
311.
311 is municipalities, we have it.
Yeah,
okay, yeah, we don't
Yeah.
have a 311, the 211. I think it still works, but it's run by the United Way and it's about community services.
It's community
So the
service.
311, I'm not familiar.
311 is the municipal version of that in some centers. City of Toronto, Hamilton,
Windsor.
Windsor
Yeah,
have
it's much.
that one. But Dan gave us cities. One of the works number, if I recall. But there is to be equals, the 211 is information service, 311 is director of municipalities,
Yeah,
that's. I don't know why the city would benefit, that's. The folks in the room would know that more than I would.
Okay, I've jotted that down to add to our potential to-do list, to explore that, what would it take, does it mean funding, does it mean, like, what does that mean? So we can add that to our list, and then as we go through our list of barrier removal things, we'll rank things according to various different priority criteria. Is that okay?
that sounds good. I know when people call the 311 in other cities, they'll say, well, for instance, the APS or the button on the corner of Kim and Bruce Street, one on the gas station side hasn't worked all winter. Okay, well, then I don't have to send an email or phone Dan or whoever, you would just dial 311 and you leave that message on the answer machine, and then Board of Works or whoever, they just go and deal with it.
Yeah, that's not really something for the accessibility thing. That's the city as a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a whole, but if you have an accessibility issue. For somebody,
311 is
it's easy, yeah,
So
It's
maybe we could,
acceptable
maybe
for
we
some
could,
people,
we could make that point with our CAO.
yeah.
Just send an email saying that this was discussed at meeting and felt that this would be a way of improving service.
and it gives them.
For everyone.
Anyway, that's what you want.
Yeah,
Yes.
211 is different, and yeah,
211 is information.
information, yeah.
I think of the board member service we use quite a lot, especially for new they have a language provision that is extremely helpful, where we don't have folks who speak. Number of them. We use it for that purpose, but we pay it.
Actually, with the repairs and that, I mean, the system, we have a system now, we just don't use the 311 number. But I mean, it works,
It's exactly,
it's just a convenience.
yes, question recognition, the products wide program. Yeah,
Go ahead, Dan.
So to answer your question a little bit, Carol, yeah, Public Works Department, we do support a 311 system, and it's something I think corporately we're looking towards. But in the meantime, the Public Works dispatch line is staffed 24/7. So any accessibility maintenance issues, that would be the current route to take.
Okay, it's just 311 would be, like in the future, would be easier for people than just 311. Or, 211, 411, 911.
Understood.
Okay,
Thanks, Dan. Okay,
perfect.
shall we move on? The next. We're good to move on, I see nobody disagreeing, so I guess we're good to move on. The next thing on our agenda is funding decision making tools for accessibility improvements for projects like that. We've discussed this before, we've gone through this before. Diane has made some changes. Diane, did you just wanna kind of summarize this for folks?
Sure, so there are 3 pieces to our funding decisions and tools, our funding. Yeah, so one is the application, which is for city departments, only for city departments. Not to say that something like, say, Sioux Minor Baseball, came to us and was looking for some funds for an adult change table. Something like that may come up and the committee can certainly consider that. But generally speaking, this is for internal use only. So it's a guide, just giving staff a basic idea of what kinds of things are included. And I wanted it to stay very, very simple. So it's a 1-page, just tell us about it. You don't have to jump through hoops because it's already so difficult to do public funding grants. And then on the back page of that one, we have, so whatever the project is, and then the criteria are for assessing is safety concerns, the frequency of use, the practicality and feasibility of the project, the cost effectiveness, inclusiveness and innovation, meaning going above and beyond basic necessities. Alignment with the multi-year accessibility plan, the policies for the facility assessment. Bonus plans, if they have included a preventive maintenance plan. It's something that is required under the legislation that for any accessibility equipment, that there must be a preventive maintenance plan in place so that equipment works reliably. And then there's gotta be another category for something else we didn't think of. So then there's other considerations because I don't know anybody who uses anything like this to score or assess anything. So with the help of our good friends at AI and some input into what I kind of wanted it to look like, this is what we've ended up with. For the second one, the AAC barrier removal funding assessment guide, this is really our guide. I suspect this document will become full of dust over time because we'll be so familiar with the information that's contained in here, we will no longer need to reference it, and that'll be great. And then the last one, this will be less applicable this year because we don't have a funding deadline. Because we haven't even let staff know that this is a process that's coming out. But this will be helpful next year when we have various different projects to weigh against each other, and we can prioritize. So for Carol's benefit, the AAC project comparison, on the one sheet, on the one side, it says project is very high cost from 40 to 85,000, so basically using half or more of our budget. With high overall use or impact, with moderate overall use or impact, or with low overall use or impact. And then with that criteria, based on cost, it goes into the grid that's on the opposite side. So at a glance, this colorful page that Carol could not see, but I hope you were able to read what was in each part of the table, Carol?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So it's got a visual as well as a text content to it. So weighing cost and impact against the high use, the moderate use, and the low use. With red being something that would have little support. Orange having a little bit more support than a red category. Yellow being somewhere in the middle, light green being, yeah, I think we can do that, and bright green being, it's a low cost, but it's got a high impact. So yes, we should definitely, we should charge forward with that. I'm quite sure as we use these tools, we'll find flaws in it, but we can change it as we go. So that is the update to our tools, and I think it's a good starting point.
I agree.
Go ahead.
This is excellent. You're right, it's a very good starting point. And I just want to give you recognition on how you have offered other categories. Because you're absolutely right, we've all been on assessment, committees before, and there's always seems to be a one little piece that we have forgotten.
Right.
So I love that other. So this is my question. If someone comes to you and they identify funding already, would that go under other, or would that be a separate category?
You mean, say they're asking the committee for $10,000, so they've got a $50,000 contribution kind of thing?
Right, or they've already identified $1,000 that they made $9,000. Does that help with the priority?
It could be, so I never thought of that, right? And I'm sure there are lots of things like that, it's not quite how I envisioned the other, but that would work.
Okay.
Carol and I were speaking today, and one of the things that I kind of pictured that other category being used for is something like the top criteria is safety, right? Most important criteria everywhere has to be safety. If we've identified the safety as, say, a 3, it's there's a huge safety concern, and everything else is whatever it is. And then, you just get that kind of feeling in the pit of your stomach that like, this has to happen, even though it didn't really score the way we thought it would.
Yeah.
We can put some notes in there and say, this has to be important for the committee, so we can use it in probably a number of ways.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
Diane, you said at the beginning that this is like for other city staff, other departments to come forward and say, here's an idea that we have, we'd like to do this, and we'd like you guys to help us with this financially. Great plan, works, okay, but what about ideas that this committee comes forward and says, look, there's a problem, this door out here doesn't open or whatever, or here's something we want to do. We want to support some project somewhere. I take it that we would go through the same process as well.
100%.
Because I think that really helps both senior management and city council, like something shows up from us. Or from another department that says, here's what we wanna do. They're comfortable that, yeah, this has been evaluated against other projects, it's not necessarily just a one-off kind of thing.
Right.
And give council some confidence in funding this thing.
Yeah, yes.
Is that fair?
I completely agree, and I've already started a list of things that either have come to me from the committee or Carol's suggestion for the civic address signs in the downtown.
Yeah,
Right, and I've just started keeping a list, and maybe on our first meeting, we just need to go through that list for this year and decide, okay, let's pick 5, we've got 30 things on this list, but let's pick 5 and let's score them, which would our top 5 be? Just, as a consensus, what are our top 5 projects, and let's start scoring them and let's see how this works. So.
I know I appreciate Carol, but downtown is so hard. Because every building is so different.
I got it, introduce, that's why we need to go on a walkabout.
Yeah, not right.
No,
Sorry,
no, when the weather's really nice. Yeah. Yeah.
Just as implementation, we had talked about this before, rather than having the entire committee go through everything. We had kind of assigned it to the site plan committee with volunteers. Lisa and Craig to also work with that, to
Yeah.
go through sort of the evaluation process in full. In order to come to the committee and say, here's kind of where we're at, and are we still on, is that still the basis that we're gonna operate on moving forward?
Yes, I think it's really important that everybody takes some time and do an assessment on their own. Because we all bring our own expertise, our own experiences to some of these projects. And then we discuss it as a group, whether or not it's formally written down. At least you've thought about it with the particular projects and where you would score this as a 1, a 2, or a 3. And then we get together and we can hear each other's thoughts on this as well, because Carol will bring up something and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I never thought of that. Or Lisa, you might bring something up that say, well, sometimes.
Yeah.
And then our thoughts come together and we try to work on consensus then.
You gotta walk in the shoes of the other person's experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Comments, anything else? Moving right along then, we don't have any barrier removal updates, nor do we have a site plan subcommittee report this time. Which brings us to the conclusion of the meeting.
I just have one announcement.
Go right ahead, Lisa.
I was at a meeting earlier, so for World Autism Acceptance Day, they wanna call it could be Awareness Day, but they're gonna say on April 2nd, there's gonna be a flag raising at 12:30. And then AFS and the Youth Wellness House, they're putting together a sort of like a little trade show, for lack of a better word, organizations that support folks with autism. So there'll be about, I think, 8 or 9 agencies there at the Youth Wellness Hub. And it's from 3 to 6 that day.
And it's where?
At the Youth Wellness Hub.
Oh, at the Youth Wellness Center,
Where,
sorry.
yeah, Dennis Street, the old Oddfellows.
Okay,
You got it.
and I assume this is downstairs, right?
No, I think they're gonna do it,
Is there something on the?
they're gonna do it on the main floor, and then I think they're gonna keep downstairs for if someone needs a quiet room or things like that. So it's from 3 to 6. So AFS will be there, Thrive, Access OEP, G4G, C4G, Open Autism Foundation. What else was that? Autism Ontario. What about right now? The DARE program,
And what time is the flag raising?
12:30.
12:30?
What day is that on?
Good question. April 2nd.
I was just looking that up,
I think it's a Thursday.
it is a Thursday, yeah, it's next Thursday. 2 Thursdays.
Tuesday, I know, 'cause I was like,
Two
yeah.
Thursdays.
Yeah.
Rush climb.
Okay.
And I do wanna say something also.
Go ahead, Carol.
So I got a phone call from BPR,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Vulnerable Persons Registry,
Awesome,
to update my file.
You got a call.
All right,
I got a call.
good. Good.
Progress.
I missed it
That's
though.
progress.
So I called them back and I got the answer machine, so I'll have to keep trying.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. They
Yeah,
heard your
I-
message loud and clear, yeah. Yes. Yes, so good. Glad to hear that.
Excellent.
Can we have a mover and a seconder to adjourn the meeting? Lisa?
The one I got here late, I was at John Rand's.
I know.
I knew I was
so
gonna do that too, I knew I was gonna do that, and in my mind, was like, you know, what's that
It happens. Okay, so
habit?
Lisa moved it, Carol, you'll second it, that this meeting be adjourned. We will all see you then on April 15th. Which is here, and we will be here on April 15th.
Okay.
Perfect. Have a great day, everybody.
Leslie, have a wonderful time away. Leslie will not be with us next month because I think she's going somewhere fabulous, doing something wonderful.
Yay.
Thank you. I'll see you in May. Thank you for making it accessible. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
That'd be very sending.
Yes, perfect, that worked out well.